Alright, this is Reflective Practitioner Video Journal number 4 for week 8. This week's topic is the quote, "What gets measured gets done." Ironically, I've never heard this quote said in the manner that it's stated, but I understand the meaning. I think it's the same concept as SMART goals. I even remember a lyric from a song that says, "A goal is just a dream with a deadline." So that speaks to the importance of having parameters and being able to empirically measure any initiative or outcome when it comes to change in education. So thinking about this quote and the guidelines for this week's video, two things immediately come to mind. The first is the iPad initiative LAUSD had a couple years ago. I think it was in 2013. My school was one of the schools chosen to be the first 40-50, and LAUSD is a huge district, second largest district in the nation, millions of students. So they were planning to do a slow rollout with about 40-50 schools to start getting to the one-to-one iPad to student initiative. And the intent was great, it's meant to close the technology gap, the socioeconomic gap, by creating equity of access and opportunity when it comes to technological resources. At the time, students did not have the same level of access to technology they did now. Smartphones were prevalent, but they were not as ubiquitous as they are now. Nowadays, every kid has a smartphone from middle school on, some kids in elementary school. I don't know if many phones are even out there that aren't smartphones. So again, it's just the world's immersed in smartphone technology. But 4 or 5 years ago, that wasn't the case in the same volume and frequency that you see smartphones now. So it was a big deal back then. And this was a major initiative, supposed to cost $1.1 billion, if I remember correctly. Had some big players from both the educational and technology world. Again, LAUSD was a district that was going to test out this innovative concept, while Apple and Pearson were going to provide the hardware and software, respectively. So, my school was so excited. Everyone was hyped. Of course, the initiative had its detractors and its proponents, but for the most part, I think the general feeling was one of excitement. We all thought that this could be, if not a panacea, at least the right step in providing equal access to, students in urban school areas, students in poverty. But it quickly became apparent that this was not planned out. This was not measured appropriately for the monumental task at hand. To start off with, they just didn't take into consideration the safety aspect, kids hacking the iPads, and moreover, these kids who live in urban, dangerous areas, a lot of them anyways, having to carry expensive technological devices, because the idea was to have them have one-to-one iPads that they could bring home. And again, just imagine an 11, 12, 13-year-old kid walking home through a rough neighborhood when people know that he has an iPad in his backpack, a $400, $500 iPad. Beyond that, just the logistical issues when it comes to maintenance and upkeep, connectivity issues, software implementation. Pearson actually didn't even have the full curriculum ready by the time of the launch. They just had sample lesson plans, which ended up being a disaster, and adding so much more stress to the people who were supposed to implement it, the teachers. So if I remember correctly, I think within a year that whole initiative was shuttered, and Apple and Pearson ended up having to pay LAUSD a couple $1 million each. So that's a prime example of a very prominent initiative that was not measured out appropriately. When they figured the costs and some of the simple logistics, but they were in no way, shape, or form prepared for all the details and considerations and problems that could arise. The second thing that comes to mind is the idea of measuring student achievement as a way to determine teacher quality and teacher compensation. And I don't necessarily know how I feel about that. On the one hand, it can be quite volatile, I think, to tie teacher quality and teacher compensation to student achievement data. There's just so many intangible and uncontrollable aspects and barriers that students bring to the table that may affect their achievement. But on the other hand, what other industry is not measured by its outcomes based on the service or product it provides? So I don't know. But I think we can all agree that there has to be some guidelines, some framework and structure when it comes to measuring student achievement in a meaningful way, and not just talking about recording numbers and using it as data. How's that data informing us? And as a school leader, that's what I need to figure out. Being data-driven, data-informed is absolutely crucial in today's 21st century world, but more importantly is, what does that data do to affect behavior? And how does the information from that data change outcomes? Because if it doesn't change outcomes in the way you want, the data is useless. It simply is. So yeah,